r/askreddit, what was the dumbest rumor spread about you? That my parents were drug dealers, and they involved me in selling drugs at my elementary school. What actually happened was that I gave my friends $1 each from my lunch money so we could all buy cookies. Somehow the rumor spread all the way to the principal, so he dragged me to his office and lectured me about not giving my money away in front of other people. Could have been worse. The principal could have dragged you into his office to hook a brother up. I was once sick for an entire week of 9th grade. Somehow it spread that I went to Hawaii. Even a teacher made a comment. I have no idea how the fuck that started, and nobody would tell me why they thought it, because they thought I was just being cheeky by denying it. Who in their right mind would deny going to Hawaii? That doesn't make much sense. Someone in an affair with a Hawaiian. I moved from Scotland to England at like 13. I had a thick accent and I got a lot of shit for it, so almost subconsciously I slowly started to like fake an English accent. Was really stupid as I'd flip back to Scottish as soon as I got home. After I left school I dropped the accent, but by that time the majority of people I knew in the small town I was in had met me as English spliff wizard, so when I'd see people they'd be like, WTF happened to you? Why are you suddenly Scottish? I used to just make shit up like I had a voice transplant and this is all they had, but eventually it stopped. Roll on a few years and I'm back in town having a drink with some mates. I get talking to two guys and when I mention my name one is like, oh shit, you're that guy who pretends to be Scottish, and so now apparently there's a fable around the town of some English kid who one day was just like, fuck this, I'm Scottish now. And the kid is me. Class. When I was in grade 1 some girls thought it would be funny to tell everyone I had boy private parts, which upset me greatly. I don't remember this, but my mother has told me that during an assembly I was talking with the people around me and it was brought up and I felt the need to stand up and pull down my pants and undies in front of everyone. I cringe every time I think about it. Not me but my ex. Hairstylist I hadn't been to before. Small talk. Find out she went to the same large high school as my fiance and graduated the same year. Did you know, narcissistic asshole? Oh my god. Yes. Isn't it sad how he died? Before I could get a word in she goes into this story about how he moved to Las Vegas after high school, got heavy into drugs and killed himself. Well, I don't know where you heard that, but he's my fiance and he's very much alive. In middle school some sub that no one knew that looked like a nut pulled me from class because of a family issue, walked me out of the school to my mom. Somehow this turned into the sub being a cop, and it being a cop car, and I was in trouble for something. One rumor a few weeks later was that I had gotten in trouble for bringing tons of huge guns to school or something. I was like, guys, I'm still at school. I told you what happened. When I was 4 years old, I played with the kids across the street. We had just moved in and I didn't really know anyone. Somehow, these kids either misconstrued what I said or straight up lied to stir shit up, but their grandma came over, yanked me by the arm and forced me into a chair, and started screaming at me about how I was possessed by the devil. After about 5 minutes of that she literally threw me outside and I ran home crying. Never hung out with those kids again. That my boyfriend rapped me or pressured me. We haven't even had sex yet, we were both virgins and wanted to wait. We lived in a small town of 800, so word spread fast. And a woman wanted me to press charges against him, because though he was older than me, I was actually older than him. It was stupid, but thankfully it stopped after a month. How I had this rumor spread about me too, but it was blowjobs at school. bathrooms, staircases etc. I had never seen a dick nor had I ever given a blowjob. I just owned it BC. It was so ridiculous. Once a guy asked me about it and I was like, yeah, for sure. You have a minute now? Meet me in the staircase. His reaction was like a deer in the headlights. That became an ongoing joke for the remainder of our friendship. I don't know how true the entire situation is, but here we go. My last job was a very comfortable environment and we were kind of a family. I make friends pretty easily and get close to people naturally and don't really care who I make friends with as long as they're good people. One of my co-workers and I were good friends and he gave me rides home occasionally when he was around. It was a huge help instead of taking the bus during the cold dark. I got home way earlier and we talked about things on the way home and related to each other. He started to get pushy about coming over to my place and I was kind of not about it because he was in a relationship and had kids with her. I shut it down and he eventually left the job. We stopped talking. No big. After I left the job, one of the people I kept in touch with told me that a rumor was going around that I had slept with said former friend. I found this pretty hilarious since I didn't find him attractive in any way. Truly, I thought he was like a brother more than anything. The twist to the whole story here is the person who started the rumor and got fired for some serious reasons was sleeping with my former friend. The whole rumor was designed to keep the pressure off of her. So not only was I being talked about after I wasn't there anymore, I was still being used and I couldn't say anything about it. It was a lot. I'm glad I'm elsewhere now. I was working in the mall about 7 years after high school as a sales rep for the phone company that has the blue globe logo, and out of nowhere a friend from high school runs up to me and gives me a big hug and tells me, dude, so and so told me you were dead. I was confused at first and told them no, I am very much alive. Apparently a few people got the wrong idea when they heard I got into a really bad car wreck I was in when I went underneath an 18-wheeler and turned an S10 truck into a convertible. After a few disastrously bad relationships in college, high school for you US folks, I decided I was gay, actually bi, and was quite vocal about it when I got to uni. College in the US, a teen girl moved to the area where I went to uni and was already 3 months pregnant when she moved there and obviously had never met anyone there. She told everyone that I was the baby's father and somehow people believed it. Even after the baby was born, people believed that the loudly gay black man had somehow had a blonde white baby. That the scars left from stitches that got infected from a mole biopsy on my forearm, around what was left of the mole, were from shooting up heroin. No clue who started that one, but they really made my life shitty for a couple of weeks. When I was like 16 or so, my cell phone goes off while I'm sitting in my room at home. Non-local number, but this was before telemarketing had gotten as bad as it is now, so I answer it. It was an acquaintance of mine from freshman year who had moved to New Mexico. He had somehow heard through the grapevine that my grandmother, who I lived with and had raised me, had died and I dropped out of high school and had turned into a raging alcoholic. He was calling to make sure I was okay. This was, in fact, completely untrue. My grandmother was downstairs probably playing mahjong. I was still in high school, and I was not yet an alcoholic. We're still good friends to this day. When I was in college, I had a job interview and I decided to stop by my parents' house before driving back to campus. Got into an accident in my hometown. Other driver was hospitalized. I didn't know anything about her status until legal proceedings began. Parents drove me back to campus and I spent the evening drinking. Went to a party. Told one friend that I was drinking to forget because of the accident. A few weeks later and I pass a group of people from my social circle and they say, dude, I heard you killed a guy. It was a running joke from then until graduation.
In high school, I gained the entirely erroneous reputation of being part of an axe-murdering drug cult. This requires a bit of an explanation. When I was a teen, many years ago, I used to, on occasion, drop acid with a group of friends. One day, we decided to go camping and trip together. We went to a local ravine. We could get there by bus, though once there, we were there for the night. I brought a tent. Another guy brought an axe to get firewood, another guy brought some weed, others brought this and that. There were 6 of us on this trip. Anyway, we found the site, a lovely location in a ravine by a waterfall, took the acid and started to set up camp. This was, in hindsight, a mistake. We should have set up camp, then dropped.
My task was setting up the tent, and by the time I had done, I was starting to trip, and setting up the tent was becoming a little too interesting. I just finished when I hear some sort of commotion. I could tell something had gone wrong. What happened was this: another kid had set out to collect and cut up wood for the fire, and using an axe while starting to trip proved a bad idea. The axe had bounced off the wood he was cutting and had gone into his foot. Fortunately, one of the kids had a first aid kit on him. Unfortunately, he knew nothing of first aid, so the job of patching up the foot fell to me. It wasn't too bad, a nasty cut which produced lots of blood, but I got a good bandage on it, and it held fine. Only, by this time I was tripping hard. I remember looking down at my hands, looking up at the sky, and noticing the red blood all over my hands was the same as the dark red of the sky, and my thought was the night has just begun. It was not a comfortable thought. To make things worse, my clothes had smears of his blood all over them. However, after that, it was all good. The kid with the cut foot was fine. We made a fire, everyone chilled out and we were all peeking nicely. Only one problem: no enough firewood. In all the excitement, no one had thought to collect any more. Thing is, in the country at night, a fire is light, and life, and civilization. Especially tripping on LSD. Letting the fire die was unthinkable, but so was leaving the group to go out into the dark to collect firewood. I went out with another kid to get wood. We collected a few pieces with flashlights, then the other kid ran into a spider web. He asked in a voice near hysteria, "Are there any spiders on me?" I looked, and in the uncertain light it looked like his back was crawling with spiders, but I confidently told him there were none. However, this event killed any desire to seek firewood, and we were reduced to tossing in twigs and junk lying close at hand, when suddenly we heard voices and a light moving towards us. We were all terrified that it was the cops, but instead it turned out to be a couple of metalheads from our school. They were there with some beer, because they had heard there was a ravine party and they wanted to party it up. Looking back on it, I feel sorry for them. Of course, they had no idea what had happened. What they saw was 6 kids, some of them with, as it turned out, badly blood-stained clothes, with an axe propped up against a tree. All of us were staring fixedly at them with expressions, no doubt, of fear and hostility. Once we determined they were not cops, we all had a single thought, expressed at the same time: please get us firewood. Which they did, with admirable haste, but they declined to stay. They must have come by car. Before we knew it, they had departed away they came. We were all happy about that, because they seemed so tense and awkward, which was spoiling the mood. After that, with the lack of firewood solved so providentially, the night passed wonderfully well, and the next day we departed, the kid with the cut foot, to see a doctor. He was fine. Over the next week, though, I noticed I was getting funny looks from a bunch of kids I did not know. Gradually, I learned the cause. The 2 metalheads who had visited our campsite were telling a most absurdly exaggerated story about what they had seen. Of course, they had not seen the kid's cut foot. It was bandaged and inside a sock. Nor, in our tripped out state, had we told them of the accident, or indeed that we were on acid. So in their minds, we were a bunch of blood-stained cultists who had murdered someone, and threatened to do the same to them, unless they did what we said.